Hey guys, Augiesaint here and welcome to the channel. Hope you guys are having a fantastic day, and let's talk about Ultimate Valby today. She's really fun. She's not the best at anything, but she's really good at everything. So you can kind of say she's like a jack of all trades. She's very good at mobbing as well as bossing because she can boost your crit chance quite high with the Supply Moisture module. I reckon this is one of, if not the best Transcendence module in the game, as it gives you 30% increased crit to your weapons, your skill rate, and that's a flat increase as well as a little bit of duration up on your skills. And that's not even the best thing about Valby for me. The best thing for me is her cleanup ability, her 3, where you go in the water form and then you have no unit collision. Best thing for me, I wish Bunny had something like this, but then Bunny would be way too overpowered. But anti-unit collision or no unit collision is amazing. You can just roam around and have fun and just not get interrupted by enemies or even teammates. You can even run through bosses. You totally have no unit collision when you are in the ability, and the ability does a decent amount of damage as well. Now we're going to start out in the lab and I'm going to show you guys what all the different skills do, and then we'll get to the modules as well as the components and the reactor. I will leave down below in the description timestamps for you guys, so go ahead and click those if you want to skip to whatever part it is in the video you are looking for. So first up we have her Q, which is like this little bubble bullet. It does a decent amount of damage, as I just missed everybody, and then put the debuff. It does also apply your water on the ground, and this water coincides with her passive, where your skills will cost less MP if you are standing on the water, but that skill doesn't actually work if you do have Supply Moisture active. It takes away that. So let's have another look at this bubble bullet. You see it hit for 1 million there, so it does quite a bit of damage up front, and if you jump up like this and you throw it like this, it does kind of like a couple more ticks as well. So sometimes you can get lucky. It's a little bit annoying to aim it because it does get like thrown off by terrain and everything, but you mainly just use it to put your water on the ground and then have that as your Supply Moisture activator. And also it hits the boss, and then the boss will get debuffed with that buff over there. As you can see, that is her passive called Laundry. And this also adds a debuff where the enemies will have the non-attribute resistance reduced as well as the electric resistance. So this just makes Valby even stronger, as all of her skills are non-attribute, as well as someone like a Bunny or even electrical mods and stuff on your weapons like the Thunder Cage, for example. You can mod that up and it's going to give you increased damage with that Laundry debuff. And then her second ability, she kind of leaves a big water patch where she jumps out, and then she jumps up wherever you click with this thing, and it leaves another big water patch as well as knocking down the enemies. So it's a good way to like cover a huge area. As you can see that we've put water everywhere over here. It applies the debuff, and that's ticking for quite a lot, as you can see in the background there. And then it's also just going to give you your buff over there, so you have your Supply Moisture crit buff. And then we move on to her third skill, Cleanup. Now this one is the one that ignores unit collision. You can see we can go right through these guys, no problems. And this also does stack. You see your debuff there? The damage won't be stacking on top of each other, but the ticks will stack. So you'll have like more debuffs sticking over and over. So the more water you place on the ground and the more times you like run everywhere, this is going to have this building up. You see it's ticking so much like crazy, and that's just going to do a ton of damage eventually. You can like pre-plan and then just go put your juices everywhere and just, you know, drown everything in your juices. And then last but not least, we have our ult ability. Now this pulls all the enemies together, and it also applies another debuff, as you can see there, called Toad. And that debuff is very important, and that debuff is important to know about, as it's going to work with your component set later on to give you back MP. We'll talk about that once we cover components. So that is her skills, and now we'll have a look at her mods. This is kind of my general use AoE. I use this for doing dungeons and everything. The only time I ever change is when I go do bosses. I'll switch over to the bossing one, but I pretty much use this for everything else. Whenever I'm playing in the open world or doing the infiltrations, anything, I just tend to use this. So first of all, let's cover her Transcendence module. Now I would recommend using Supply Moisture for pretty much everything. This actually helps you quite a lot if you are doing Gluttony, the new boss. And it's also really fun to use if you just want to use it for mobbing. You could drop Supply Moisture and use that. Also, if you are trying to do the solo leveling method, then you'll have to use this. And I've managed to get myself from level 1 to 40 in about 25 minutes doing it solo, so it's really, really fast. Let me show you guys how this actually works. So it turns your first skill into like this bubble bullet that just goes along. So it's much easier to aim than without the augment. And if you aim it at enemies, it actually does a substantial amount of damage. Plus it also leaves a puddle on the ground, so you can build up your puddles much, much faster. And then again, it has the special use in the Gluttony fight where it pulls the balls closer into Gluttony. So it just makes that fight a lot easier. And then if we go back and have a look at the Cold Cohesion one, this is actually called Hydro Pressure Bomb. So this basically turns your C into something very similar to what Ajax has. So you jump, and then we'll jump down and do damage. Quite good, decent damage there, but you see it didn't crit. And then what you can also do is you can apply your debuff to the enemies, and then we'll make that skill actually do more damage when you land on it. See there, 2.1 million, so that is quite powerful. It's very strong. I'm just not really a fan of it because it kind of breaks the flow for me. And what you can do is you also, if you double jump, you go much further with that. So if you double jump, you will go quite far. It does a lot of damage. If you want to mess around with it, you definitely could go ahead and use it. But like I said, I prefer to use Supply Moisture because I just like having the ability to do massive crits as well all the time, as well as use my guns and not just focus completely on my skill. So let's carry on with the build. So for HP, we have Battle Stamina for a little bit of HP and Duration. If you feel like you are a little bit squishy, you could easily switch that out for any other HP mod because they all share the C socket, so you could go ahead and change it up. You will lose that little bit of duration, but it's not the end of the world. If you feel comfier on more HP, go for it. But I honestly have no problems with this, as we do have 50% damage reduction when we are using our cleanup skill. So that just makes the build so much more tankier. If you use this correctly and defensively, you can pretty much just do everything with very minimal defense and HP. And then on to our next mod, we have Decimator. Now this is really strong as it does buff your dots as well as the initial hits. It just buffs everything when you kill enemies inflicted by debuffs, which all the time they will be infected by your laundry and your ticking debuffs and that. So just extra skill damage. Then we go over to MP conversion, as this gives a little bit more cooldown than what Nimble Fingers does at the loss of 15% MP. But you really don't feel that, especially if you're not playing with Supply Moisture and you have your passive reducing your cost, then you'll pretty much never feel this. Even with Supply Moisture, I never run out of MP. And then we have Skill Expansion just for increased range. It makes everything so much nicer, especially when you lay down your water, so it can actually hit the boss so he gets debuffed, as well as giving you the water to actually get your Supply Moisture debuff. Without this, it just feels a little bit too small and you've got to really make sure that you are standing on the water most of the time. But with that on, it just goes everywhere and that just makes it so much better. And then we have our 2 blue crit mods. Now you could switch out Insight for front lines if you want a little bit more crit damage. But let me show you guys how much crit chance we actually have when we use our Supply Moisture. So let's have a look there. Skill critical hit 10%, and we got that doesn't affect your multiplier, but it does affect your crit chance. So we have a look at our Afterglow where it's 71%. Now let me put down my water. And we go have another look. We are now at 53 skill crit, and our Afterglow is actually maxed out at 100% crit. So that is a massive damage. So whenever you shoot, no matter where you shoot on this thing, it's going to always crit. If we go ahead and drop skill Insight for front lines, which can give us more critical damage, we can go ahead and put our water down. And now our skill crit is at 31%. So it's not as crazy. That's why I prefer to have the extra crit chance, just for more consistency. But if you want less consistency but higher damage numbers, you can obviously go for the purple mod like that. I'm gonna switch it back to Skill Insight, and then we move over to Skill Extension just for increasing that duration. Now duration is really good on Valby as it increases pretty much everything. Your first skill has the duration on the dot, the water that grows on the ground. Your second skill, your third skill, even your fourth skill has increased duration. So it just benefits, cooldown and duration benefits Valby like all of her abilities. So that's why it's just so good to have as much cooldown and duration that you can. Then we have Spear and Shield of Air just for a little bit of defense and also some skill power. Now again, you can drop this out for the other flat defense mod if you feel like you want to be a little bit more tanky, as it does share the same polarity. And then we move over to our 2 damage mods. We have Focus on Dimension and Focus on Non-Attribute. The only reason we are using these instead of the blue ones, because the blue ones do give you a little bit increased damage. I believe it's like Non-Attribute Specialist. That gives you a little bit more damage. But then we do lose out on 12.2% cooldown. And like I said before, cooldown is really important on Valby as it just scales with everything. So having those 2 together is basically half of Nimble Fingers, which is really strong for just doing that on top of getting extra damage. And then for your melee mod, you can really use whatever you want. I just really like the maneuverability of mid-air maneuvering. And then the component set that we're going to be using alongside the mobbing version will be the Slayer set. Now this is going to give you increased skill power, but also it's going to increase your skills. Again, we don't feel this. If you read the bottom line, when defeating enemies inflicted with Toad, recovers MP and specialized resource at a 17% chance. So that's why I told you guys about the Toad effect on the ultimate. Now this has a 13-second cooldown, so if you really need MP, you can go ahead and use this whenever you do. But for the most part, when you are mobbing and doing dungeons and stuff, I never really run out of MP. And if I ever do come close, I just go ahead and use that, and then it's just going to restore pretty much all your MP. Now the rolls you want to get on this is always try and go for max MP on the sensor, and then the rest you just want to go for as much defense as you can. The Slayer set overall is pretty bad for defensive stats, but the MP over there is the most important. So overall, the Slayer set doesn't really provide that good defense, but the damage gain from it is just too good to pass up on. As well, if you are ever feeling threatened, just go ahead and use your cleanup ability, as that will give you the extra 50% damage reduction. But I have no problems running Slayer with this setup. And now let's have a look at the bossing build. As you can see, we've changed up quite a bit there, giving us way more defense. If we have a look at our stats, we've got 41k defense, and then we have 12k HP. So you see we're really tanky as we are using the Annihilation set, as well as with the bossing module. So for bossing, We use increased HP for just a bigger HP pool on that one. HP collector, now this you can switch around for anything that you want. I sometimes like to mess around with Walker Tightrope, but it's a little bit dangerous to play with that, so I wouldn't suggest it for everybody. But if you want to get some more damage, you just need to be under 50% HP, and you can get this benefit over there. Otherwise, HP collector is good, and it's going to help you in the boss fights when you go and kill some ads. Will give you a little bit of HP. Then we have time distribution there for cooldown as well as HP, as we don't really need all that much cooldown and duration on the bossing build, because we just need to have our water puddle up on any of our skills, and pretty much all of your skills apply the water puddle. So it's very easy to get it. You don't need to, you know, have the same one up all the time. Skill expansion just for increased range. Then we have shot focus for increased firearm attack, as we don't really use our skills to do the boss damage on this build. Then we have non-attributive air just because it fits the socket, as well as giving you 15% critical hit resistance, so you won't get critical hit by the bosses as often. You know, just a nice little cherry on top. Then we have skill extension there for some more duration. Increased defense. Again, we have the bigger defense one, as we don't really care too much about damage on this for our skills. So these two giving you skill power is not really helping you all that much, as you're only really using your skills to proc supply moisture on the bossing build. Then agony, yet again, for more defense as well as MP, and it does fit the same polarity. And then nimble fingers just to make up for not having the two cooldown mods as well as losing the cooldown over there. So I pretty much still have the same cooldown with this setup. And then like I said previously, for the bossing version, we will be using the Annihilation setup. Now this is a very tanky set. When you do lose HP, you will gain a little bit of firearm attack damage, and you also get a little bit of skill duration with the Annihilation set. So overall, the Annihilation set is just much better for bossing, and you don't really gain much out of the Slayer set, other than the general round capacity, which is not going to help you all that much. And then for reactors, when you are doing bossing, your reactor really doesn't matter, as you're going to be focusing on your gun damage. The reactor for bossing, I would say skill cooldown and skill duration would be the best for bossing. But then for mobbing, I would say you want to look for something with crit damage on it, since your skills will be using supply moisture, so you'll have that really high crit chance. That means that your crit damage is going to be way more valuable for damage. So for mobbing, I would say crit damage, and then maybe skill cooldown or duration, or even non-attribute boost, or even dimension boost. So in priority list for mobbing, I would say crit damage number 1, and then cooldown, duration, and any other type of damage would be around, like in that order is what I would go for. This is just the best one I have managed to get so far, non-attribute, skill cooldown, and it is on the Thunder Cage. And that's pretty much it for the Valby build. I will show you guys a little sneaky thing that I am working on, so if you have stuck around this long for the video, I am working on a Giga gun damage build. It's going to be very tricky to pull this off and very dangerous. I do not recommend this at home, kids. But basically, we're going to be going Walker Tightrope, and we're going to use conditional recharge to actually consume our HP, so we can get into Walker Tightrope's range, as well as the Annihilation set, and increase our damage from Annihilation set, Walker Tightrope. And then we're actually going to use shields and defense as our way to stay alive, because we want to be draining our HP to go under 50%. To gain all the benefits from the extra damage, and then shot focus again there just for some increased damage. So this is a work in progress. I don't know if this is going to work as well, but so far from the little bit of testing I have done, you can actually turn Valby into quite a strong bossing character. So I'm going to have fun with that, and we still have pretty good defense as we are using the Annihilation set. 35k defense. Obviously we don't have much HP as we are eating it, but we almost have 4k shields. So we're going to play around the shields, because whenever you do use an ability with this, it's going to consume your HP and then restore shield. So you'll be restoring shield, getting your defense, as well as proccing into your Walker Tightrope and your Annihilation set. But that is for a future video when we mess around with that. So thank you so much for watching the video. I hope it helped you guys. If it did, please drop a like and a sub to the channel. It helps me out so much. We're so close to 10k subs. I really appreciate all the help from you guys. And as well, if you have any questions, ask them down below in the comments, or join the Discord and the streams over at twitch.tv/Augiesaint. Love to see you guys there, and have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you guys on the streams as well as the next video. Augiesaint out.
Run free and dive into the sky. Hear the